Hold on a second. Okay, the recording's on. Here we go. So tonight we're going to run through Dolores Cannon a bit, and you'll find she's written, I don't know, 15 odd books, maybe more, and has a whole bunch of YouTube videos. We'll be looking at one tonight. But she is, a self-taught hypnotist, and she got intrigued with her husband in this just as something different, something they wanted to do. And so they were hypnotizing different people, and they decided that they'd heard about regressing someone in hypnotism back to an earlier life. And so they said, well, let's try it out on this person. And sure enough, this person went back into something out of the 1800s or whatever. And they were like totally dumbfounded, like what's going on? So they went off, and she spent a lot of time improving her hypnotic suggestion techniques, because a lot of it is not very effective. You end up with a very shallow trance, and your conscious mind is there yakking away and disturbing things. And so what she came back with was the sort of statistics that she used were that you can get with normal hypnotic suggestions, you can get 1 out of 10 persons to go into a somnambulistic state where they're very, very deep, and the conscious mind is really totally quiet, and you're just dealing with the subconscious mind of that person. So she was able to get 9 out of 10 people to do that, but with her techniques, okay? And she did this over a period of years, but she got caught up with this idea of regressing people into past lives, because she thought that in some of these past lives, they might identify something in that past life that was impacting them in their health in the life they're living right now. And so, for example, she had someone who was that in a past life had died. He was in a house, and he was walking through the house. He's running through the house because the house is on fire, and a beam came crashing down and crushed his chest. And that was why he had these chest pains. When she got him to realize this, his body actually healed itself. The subconscious listened to this, and it said, okay, and the chest pains went away. He'd had chest pains like all of his life. So it was amazing. So that was what she was doing. And then, but she kept regressing these people, and she would always do a tape recording of these things, cassette tape recording, and would transcribe it. And, she'd find that, out of 100 people that she do, they had perfectly normal, mundane past lives. They're a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker. They're not, there's nothing really there. But then she started coming across people that had the 1 out of 100 that had something like truly amazing going on. And she started to key in and ask the subconscious, when she got people into deep hypnosis, she asked to go to the most significant former life, and she would end up going with some amazing things that she never thought she'd encounter. And she would then go off on her own and do a lot of library research to check out whatever this person was saying, and most of the time things checked out, and she couldn't figure out in the ones that didn't check out whether the source material she had were just not good. That is, someone had corrupted in the historical record what was really going on, versus what this person was telling her. So she started to lean toward whatever the person was saying on the tape was probably what really happened, what this person saw. And so this led her to, to conclude, in particular, when she looked at people dying, because she would regress them through past lives and they would have died, that death was nothing to be feared, that you had a soul or a spirit, it incarnated with the body. At death, it left the body and it went, she described it as going to a resting place where you just kind of get some rest from what was going on. Then you'd meet with a group of people that would review your life, what you'd just done in your life. And this would suggest you should think about incarnating in another life to address this, and this that you missed in this life. And so that came up. And she also, came up with people that in earlier lives were just themselves spirits or souls, and they would be, perfectly. They had no physical body. Okay, that was their life. Or she had some people that incarnated into, you name it. One person who liked to sleep a lot had incarnated in an earlier life into a rock. And he liked being a rock because it's nice and quiet. He could just sit there and not do anything for his entire life. Or another one would incarnate into a bird, like an eagle running around and hunting, and they had a wonderful time doing that, or a cat, and so forth. So all of these other things people had incarnated in is what she came across. And so she was very data driven, gathered thousands upon thousands of people and tape recordings, and the books that she's written, she selected certain things out of some of these encounters that make up the subject of the book. So with that, I'm going to go to the share screen, which I believe is here.
I must say, I am curious about the guy who used to be a rock. Was he particularly dumb?
He was happy. He was happy being all right. He said it was nice and quiet. No one bothered him.
But I guess where I'm going with this is dumb as a rock.
Yeah, well, that was what he wanted. It was. I'm not. You can go look at her books and judge for yourself. But that was what happened. So I'm going to start this thing up, if I can. Here we go.
But I'm not a psychic. I do not channel. All of my 16 books have come from my experience in my work. I'm a hypnotherapist. I consider myself to be the investigator, the reporter, the researcher of lost knowledge, because everything that I've gotten has come through the people that I work with in my sessions. I have to put it together as a reporter. I do the research, organize it, and that's where the books come from. So it doesn't come from me, but it comes through all of the thousands and thousands of people that I work with. But I've been doing this now for over 40 years. And when I started out in the 60s, there was no New Age, there was no reincarnation. I mean, people didn't know these things. There was, but nobody knew about these things. They didn't know about reincarnation. They definitely didn't know about past lives. There were no metaphysics. There were no New Age stories. Some young people may have a hard time believing that, but there was a time when we weren't into any of that. So it was total ignorance. And that's when I got into it by accident. I was doing hypnosis over 40 years ago, and that's when it was only used for habits. Stop smoking, lose weight. That's how long ago I started. And stumbled into reincarnation by accident, if anything is ever an accident. If you read my books, 5 Lives Remembered, it tells the story of my beginning. And it's only taken 40 years for that book to come out. It was way, way ahead of its time. I tried for many, many years back then to get it published, and they said, what are you talking about, past lives? We don't even know what you mean. So there were no stores, nothing. And I had all these rejects for so many years. I just said, oh, the heck with it. I'm moving on. And I began to write more books, because in the 70s is when I started doing the past life therapy full time. And even then it was not popular. Nobody really knew about it. And I began to get information. And so I wrote books at that time. By the time the computers came along, I had 5 books that I'd written on the typewriter. But it took me 9 years to find my first publisher, because nobody knew anything about this. They didn't understand it. So my daughter says, the world is finally catching up with me, I guess, because I was doing it that long ago. But in the beginning, a lot of my work was history. That's the Jesus and the Essenes and those books, because that was all I was doing was the past life regressions. But then along there somewhere, things began to change. And at first it was very subtle, but then I began to see I was having contact with a great and powerful force. And I didn't understand it in the beginning. But now, as this has developed over the last 30 years, I found a way to use this and to call it in. And now I use it in all of my sessions. And this is what I teach in my classes. We are communicating now with the greatest force there is, the source of all knowledge. You can't get any higher than that. That's what I use in my work. And they're the ones that give me the information that I write about, the source of all knowledge. This is also the part that does the instantaneous healings in my sessions. I don't heal. I don't do any of that. I am the facilitator. And they're the ones that do the work. And I just know how to talk to them, direct them through the client, and we get miracles every day in my office. So once I found out that, my main work now is therapy and counseling. And people are coming from all over the world to this little bitty town in Arkansas, here where I live. I said, it's my retreat. When I come back home, I can get up there and be isolated and recharge my batteries because nobody knows what I do over there and nobody cares. So I can live in two worlds and have a balance. Otherwise, you can get into this kind of a world and go over the deep end very, very easily. I have to have that balance in order to survive. So, but it began to be more and more common as my books began to come out. People were seeking me out. But I work in the deepest possible level of trance. I work in the somnambulistic level. At that level, you get the conscious mind out of the picture. It cannot interfere. In the lighter levels, which a lot of hypnotists work at when they do past life regressions, the person remembers a lot of it. And they'll say, oh, I made the whole thing up. But you get the conscious mind out of the picture and focus on, just let the subconscious come in and tell the story. You get the truth. And this is where all the information comes from. And I found a way, and it's a totally new technique that I'm teaching, is how to get the conscious mind out of the way and get to them. Now, the part that I work with, I call it the subconscious, but it's not the subconscious the way it's defined by the psychiatrist. That's a childish part of your mind. That's the part of your mind that is used for habits. That's not the part I work with. I didn't know what to call it when they first began to come through. When I finally said, well, I'm going to call you the subconscious. They said, we don't care what you call us. We don't have a name anyway, but we'll work with you. So the part that I call the subconscious, you may say it's the higher self, the oversoul, the higher consciousness, has all knowledge. It is extreme power, but yet it is full of total love. It's a great honor to work with them because the love I feel when I'm working with a client and the love that is in that office, the energy is so high. But they know everything about everybody. They're so big and so powerful, but yet they care about every single person. That's why we're able to have such wonderful results, because they know everything about you. There are no secrets. So when somebody comes to see me, they know what they're looking for. They see the bigger picture. All I have to do is ask the questions, and I know how to bring them in through the person I'm working with. And the results are tremendous. But the amazing thing as a reporter is the similarity of the information that comes through. Now, I work with thousands and thousands of people. So when the information comes in, if they're all saying the same thing, not knowing each other, not even knowing what I have found, we know it's got validity. And I know it's coming from them because they always speak the same way. They always have the same terminology. People read my books and they say, it sounds like the same person is answering all your questions. And I said, well, it is really, it's them. But it's gotten to the point where I can have a session, say in England. They never interrupt the therapy part and when I'm working with the client. But toward the end, sometimes they'll come through and say, Dolores, we have a message for you. I say, okay, I'm used to it. I always wonder later, what does the client think when they listen to that tape? But they say, we have a message for you. And they said, this is the next piece of information you need for your next book. And they will give me a theory or a concept that I've never heard before. And okay, then they will return to the session of helping the person. Then maybe a week later, I can be on the other side of the world here in America having another session. It happens again. And come through again, and they expand upon the theory or the concept they've just given me. And this is how I put it all together like a gigantic puzzle, a piece from this person, a piece from another person, till it all begins to make sense. That's why I'm not working. It's not like channeling. I don't get it through one person. I get pieces and bits, and that's my job to put it together. And this is where the Convoluted Universe series have come from, is all of the complicated concepts they are giving me now. And the information I'm getting now, I could never have handled 30 years ago. I wasn't prepared for it, but they know that. They know what you can handle. They never give you more than you can take, or they never give the client more than they can handle. So they give it to you in bits and pieces, like spoon feeding. So what I was getting 30 years ago was what I could handle at that time. They told me recently through another client, they said, he is where you were 20 years ago. He's not ready for these things yet. He said, you don't give a baby a 3-course meal. You give a baby milk, then cereal, then crushed vegetables. You don't give the baby a steak. So they're not going to dump a whole lot of information on you that you can't handle, or you just throw it away and say, doesn't make any sense. If you do that, it's not serving any purpose. So they feed it to you in spoonfuls, and they digest this part. Then once you get that, they will give you another piece of information. And that's the way my work has continued. Because in the beginning, when the concepts began to come through, I say, I don't understand this. And they would help me to digest it and understand it, or I would stop right then. I kept saying, you're messing with my belief system. I got it all figured out. And then I got to looking at the thing they have shown me, and I said, if I don't at least look at it and examine it, I'm no better than the church that says, do what we say and don't ask any questions. So as I began to internalize it and try to understand it, then I would be given a little more and a little more. So now it's constant. They're constantly giving me more and more ideas and concepts. You read the Convoluted Universe series, you know what it's doing. It's an evolving thing, more and more information. At the end of Convoluted 3, I made a remark and said, well, now you've told me everything there is to know. There's nothing left to you to tell me. And they said, oh no, there is more. And that's how we ended the book. And after that, I have more than enough because I've been working on 3 books. And the first one is the new one, The 3 Waves of Volunteers in the New Earth, because I've been lecturing on that. So we said, pull out all the information I have on that and put it into one book. And then there is Convoluted 4, and there are more concepts in that. And there's enough information. I'm trying to figure out where to put it because I'm always working on more books. And it seems like every time you think you've got it all, there's a little more information. And they told me you will never, as long as you're in the human body, get it all. It's impossible for the human mind to understand it. All of your questions will never be answered because no human alive can handle it. That they said some information is as poison rather than mad medicine because you wouldn't be able to take it. So when I had one student at one class one time said, but I want to know it all. They said, it is impossible, but I want it. I said, sorry, but it's not the brain, it's the mind. The mind has no concepts to handle what you're being given, you're going to be given. Now, if you remember in Guy Mealers, see how complicated it was getting. So they think it's time now to begin stretching our minds and giving us a little more information that we can handle. So we're being fed more and more and more. And those of you who are into metaphysics are better able to understand these concepts than what they call the sleepwalkers out there. Ones that are walking in their sleep because they have no idea of what's going on and what it's really all about. But that we at least have a better grasp on these metaphysical things. So I'm going to be going into some things. At first, I didn't want to cover a lot of stuff. I didn't want to go over your heads. But it seems like now is the time to start getting into some of these things. When I'm lecturing an audience, I try to stick with where I think the audience is. But sometimes they get into the questions and begin to ask more complicated questions. And I said, okay, maybe they can handle some of these things. So anyway, I'm going to try to put some new information into this lecture that's going to be going, it's in the 3 Waves book, and it's also going to be going into Convoluted 4. Okay, now where to start? That's the thing. All right. The first thing to remember, some of the other speakers have been touching on some of these things, and I said, I guess it is time to get these things out. We all began with God, and God is a tremendous force. I've had many people have sessions where they've gone back to when they were with God, and it's beautiful, it's wonderful, it's total love, and they don't want to leave. They always describe it as a bright, beautiful light. Sometimes they'll say it's like being in the sun. They call it the great central sun. And when you're there, everybody is together, and they have no desire to leave. It's extremely beautiful and wonderful. And this is why a lot of people say they feel great separation when they go off. But this is the way it was in the beginning. We were all one with God. Then God wanted to explore. He wanted to was curious. He wanted to experiment. That's when he burst out in all directions. When he did, all of these sparks flew out in all directions. And when I take a person back to what they really, really are, they're just a tiny, tiny spark of light. That's what you all are. You're just in this vehicle right now, what I call a suit of clothes. This is the costume you're wearing right now to play this part in this play. But your real soul is just like a tiny, tiny spark of light. When these tiny sparks of light flew out in all directions, some of them became galaxies, some of them became planets, and many of them were just the individual souls. And God said, go forth, my children, and learn. Learn everything there is to learn. Have experiences, learn lessons, learn everything, then return to me with all of your information. That's why they say there is no bad, there is no good. Everything is energy. Everything is experiences and lessons. So when we all have bad things that happen in our lives, that is life. But I always ask the person, what did you learn from that experience? Sometimes they haven't even thought about that. If you've learned one thing, that was the reason for having that experience. If they say, well, I didn't learn anything, it was just horrible. Well, guess what's going to happen if they say that? They got to do it again. They failed that grade. You have to do it again, and you'll be with the same people, same experiences, even be harder the next time. Because this is just a school. And it's only one of many, many schools you will attend. But when God sends us out, remember, we're on these adventures accumulating everything we can accumulate. We are like cells in the body of God. But when you're having these experiences, they said before, it's just a play, it's just an illusion. I've had people, when they've gone through the death experience, they look back and they'll say, it's just a play. I see all the actors on the stage, they're playing their parts. The people are standing in the wings and getting ready to come on stage and play their parts. It's just an illusion. But when I was in it, it seemed so real. But now that I'm over here, it is like a blink of an eye. That's how quick it is. We get caught up in it. That's what you have to learn to figure out. Remember, you design. It's your play. You're the producer, director, actor, and writer of the script. If you don't like the way the script is written, rewrite it. That's how easy it is to do. Once you understand, you really control all of your life. You control the whole situation. It's your play. And when we come in, we have all these other souls who agree to play different parts. And they have meetings over there when you're on the spirit side. Whenever you have gone through your life, you've just died, you go through a part where you do a life review. And you look over the life you have just left. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? What should I make amends about? And there's nobody up there judging you. You judge yourself. There's no harsher judge than you yourself. You see what you shouldn't have done. And then you see, I hurt this person. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. So you talk to these other souls. You say, well, we didn't do such a good job. Let's go back and do it again. This time you be the husband, I'll be the wife. Or you be the mother and I'll be the child. You can switch roles away any way you want because it is just a play. And we make agreements. Okay, this is the part I'm going to play. This time I'm going to be the villain. But you'll learn something from it. And you design what your life is going to be like. I have had this through thousands of people. I know about the planning sessions. I know when you make the agreements and you're talking to the other souls. And you'll say, okay, I think I'll learn a better lesson if I have this hard thing happen to me this time. And this other soul will say, okay, I'll be the villain. I'll do it to you. Now, on the other side, you may be best friends, but when you come in here, they're playing the villain. And many of them play their parts very, very well, as you all know. But it's an agreement you make before you come in. I'm going to have a hard life this time. But you look back at it, what did you learn? I have heard stories you wouldn't believe from my clients when they come in. Horror stories about the way people were raised that you wouldn't believe. But when I have the session and I ask, why did they have to have such a hard life? They'll say, they chose it. They set it up. And I said, why? And they said they had to learn to survive. They had to learn how to grow. They had to learn how to forgive. There was always a reason why. And it's very hard. Once they understand that, then they move on. If you don't, you have to repeat it again. They're the same people. And my clients say, I don't want that. I don't want my done. I don't want any more of that. I'm out of here. Well, then I said, you better get rid of the karma now. You better forgive them and release it, or you're going to have to come back and do it again. But this is a school you come to learn lessons. The lessons are hard. The hardest part is when you come in, you have your plan. This is what I hope to do. And it's all the contracts I've made with all these people of all the parts you're going to play. Then you come in, you forget it all. The veil comes down and you can't remember anything. I had one woman going through the birth experience and she said, I got to remember. And then she's born and she said, I don't remember anymore. And I asked them one time, wouldn't it be easier if we knew why we were here, if we knew our connections with all of the other people in our lives? They said, no, if you knew, it would be a test. If you knew the answers, it wouldn't be a test. The ETs have said we are the only planet in the universe that forgets when we come in. The rest of them know their contracts, they know their connection with God. They are very close to Him. We forget because we chose to do that. This is, like my daughter said, the most challenging planet in the universe, the most challenging planet in the solar system. Because we set to come here, you really wanted to learn a lot. It's very, very difficult. You come to Earth to learn emotions and limitations. So you choose it for that reason. But what I've found is, well, when you're making your plans, see, you don't always, Earth is not the only school. You have to take all the grades before you graduate and finally go back to God. Earth is not the only school. You have schools on other planets, other dimensions. And many of you have lived lives on other planets and other dimensions. I've had many, many sessions where they have told me about lives in other dimensions. And who knows, after you graduate from this school, maybe you decide, I'm going to go over here and live a life in this other galaxy. Different rules and regulations. So it's an ongoing thing. Earth is just a very, very difficult one. And I've had them, they've come from the source, the God, and they're busy creating planets. They're creating galaxies. Many of you have done the same things. You were co-creators. This is how powerful you are, and you forgot. You can create galaxies. I've had some of them when they created the ocean from the Earth. If you were powerful enough to do that, and now all of a sudden you forget your power, but they're having so much fun doing all of that. Living as a free-floating spirit, creating and having fun like that. Then they're on the spirit side, and they'll say, you know, it's time now for you to go and start an Earth existence. And they'll say, I don't want to do that. This is much easier. I don't want to be stuck in a body. It's dense and it's heavy. It's yucky. I don't want to do that. And they said, well, it's time for you to start your school. And I've had some of them actually cry. I don't want to go. I don't want to go down there. I don't want to do those things. This is much more fun to be up here. But no, it's time. But you agree to do it because, you know, it's part of your advancement. So, okay, once you sign the contract to start on the Earth School, you have to do it all. And believe me, it's not easy. This means you start with everything, as some of the other speakers were showing you. And I've had all this proven because I have many people go back to these lifetimes. When you, I don't say it linearly, we do know everything is simultaneous now, but I can put it into a concept I can understand is think linear. So in the beginning, you have to be air, part of the atmosphere. All of these are lessons you have to learn before you can move to the next step. I've had people go back to whenever the Earth was in its volcanic stages, before any life was there, volcanoes were erupting, the air is full of ammonia, and there's no life on Earth yet. They are part of the air. Their job is to help clean the ammonia out of the air. They had to do that before they could move on. I've had many people do that when there were gases and different things, chemicals even, and even different things. I kept thinking, well, in the beginning, they're talking to me, they got a personality, but they don't have a body. They're just part of the air. In the beginning, it was startling, but now I hear it so much, I'm used to it. But after you do that, then you have to know, what is it like to be the dirt? What's it like to be a rock? I had one man who was a very successful businessman, went to where he was in the dirt. And he said, this is very interesting. I'm looking at all the little bugs and worms crawling around down here. And it's interesting being part of the dirt. And I have had many people be rocks. And they say when they're a rock, they said, life is very slow. And see, when I get to the subconscious part, I always ask them, why did you show that light to the person? They'll say, well, they think they don't have freedom now. It's much better now than it was when they were a rock, because then they had to just sit there. Every time we have a session, the subconscious explains the meaning for the person's life. And so I've had them do all of it. They have the plant kingdom. You have to do that. You have to know what it's like to be a rose. What's it like to be in your corn? What is it like to be all these different plants? I've had people be flowers and they said it's beautiful, but it doesn't last very long. So I've had them go through all of these things. In some of my convoluted universe books, I have whole sections on people having lives as these different forms of life. And once you understand this, I think you can put ecology and the environment into a whole different way of looking at it. Because we're part of this. We have all been part of it. We need to take care of nature better if we know it's all part of us. Different stages of development. So then you have to be animals, you have to be insects. I've had people be worms. I had a real interesting one that's going in convoluted 4 where the first man went back to a lifetime as an ant. And it was very fascinating to follow the life of an ant. And he had adventures and everything. Then he dies as the ant. He's taken to the other side. He's taken before the board where you do your life review. And I'm thinking, that'd be interesting. What kind of a life review can an ant have? But they just saying, you did a good job. You learned about cooperation, about working together as a unit. Those are all very valuable traits. So now you're going to have to go and do another lesson. You learn one, you do good. You don't have to repeat that class. Now you're going to have to learn something else. Maybe patience, maybe love. Who knows what it is? You can't do it all in one lifetime. So it was fascinating to see the little ant as he evolved and he had to come back with something else. And I've had him be all kinds of animals. And I always want to know, how does an animal think? How does he see? How does an animal feel? And it's amazing. That's my curiosity. It's amazing what how you interpret things. And we're all one. We all have the same ambitions and goals and everything. It doesn't make any difference. It's all life. Everything is alive. But then after you get through being an animal, then an animal is a group soul. And you have to be able to separate from the group souls so you can become a human being. And to do that, you have to give the animal, give it individuality and personality. This is why they say when you take a pet into your home, or you give an animal special attention, love is the answer to everything. You are teaching that animal so he can separate from the group and be able to become a human. You give it a personality and individuality and separates it. The group souls are like herds of cows, colonies of bees, colonies of ants, flocks of birds, they all operate as a group. But you separate from that when you're going to move up the ladder into the human part. So they said everything is alive. They said if there's one thing you could tell people is that everything, this table, this microphone, the floor, the desk, the table, everything has life. Everything is vibrating at different frequencies, but it is all alive. It all has consciousness. I know a lot of you probably talk to your cars, don't you? You give them names, you give it a personality. They said everything has life. And even down into the fibers of the rug, there are universes within the fibers of the rug. From the microcosm to the macrocosm, everything is alive, and they're all beings. I've had people even go to where there were cells. That's amazing. So we know everything is alive, everything is there. You're all experiencing something. Some of these lives are short, and then you can go on to the next one much faster. But nothing surprises me anymore. The last client I did before coming here was a big giant bird. And she didn't even know she believed in reincarnation. She said, I never even thought about past lives, but she was a big giant bird. But that is all what we were expecting. But the subconscious said it's time for her to spread her wings and fly. She was holding back on what she was supposed to be doing with her life. So every time the subconscious picks a life for the person to see, it's always got a reason. So anyway, when you get into the human, then you have to be everything. Everything. You have to be male and female many, many times. And I have men get upset with me when I say that. What do you mean I've always been a man? What would you learn if you had always been one sex? It's got to be balance. You have to have balance. This is one of the causes of homosexuality. They've been one sex too many times, too many lifetimes. And then the spirit side says, okay, now you got to switch because you got to learn that lesson. I don't want to do that. So they come into the body, and a lot of men will say, I feel like I'm a woman inside of a man's body because they were a woman in many past lives, and now they're a man. You have to learn what it's like. And sometimes the first time they make that switch, it's difficult. And I had one man start crying in the audience, and he said, finally, you give me an explanation I can understand. But this way, if you know the rules of reincarnation, there is no judgment, there's no prejudice. We're all living our lessons, we're living our path. You never know the path of another person, you never know what their plan is. So you can't judge. But if you're male and female many, many times, then you have to be every race in the world, every religion in the world. You have to live on every continent in the world. Can you see if people understand that? There would be no prejudice. If you're prejudiced against anybody, race or religion, guess what's going to happen?
At Women's Health Connecticut, you're always the main character. That's what makes us the one for you.
Next time you come back, you have to be the very thing that you've been prejudiced about. It's a very orderly system. This is the way karma works. It's all balanced. And I proved this through many, many clients, how it happens. If you start realizing this, you look at everybody, we're all the same. We're all on the same path, trying to learn our lessons, trying to make the advancement. You don't judge them anymore. If they're negative, they're just using the energy in the wrong way. Maybe next time they'll understand, and they have to come back and do it again anyway. But anyway, then you have to be rich and poor. Sometimes being rich is not a blessing, it's a curse. You have to be everything there is to be. You have to be on every side of every coin to know what everything is like. I had a woman about a week ago, this is going to go in the new book, who, one of her first lives, she was killed in a war as an innocent bystander. The whole village was wiped out. And whenever she died, she's looking back on it, and she says, I said, well, the main thing I want to know, was she angry? Because when you're angry, you're carrying karma forward. She said, no, I'm looking at those men, and I feel sorry for them. And so there was a whole group that had decided to come in together. Anyway, they're all standing on the other side talking, and they said, now, wasn't that interesting? They've all just been slaughtered. And wasn't that an interesting life? What are we going to do next? Well, her next time, when she went before the board, they said, all right, now you've got to understand. We'll have you come back the next time as the warrior. So you can understand what it's like to have to kill, do what somebody tells you to do without being able to get out of it. So she can understand both ways, the victim and the murderer. And it makes perfect sense when they're into that. And this is where I ask lots and lots of questions because I want to understand all of these things. But then you move on to something else. You learn one lesson, and you go on to another lesson and learn that and move on and on and on. Until finally you get to the point where you don't really have a lot you have to keep coming back for. Because I've had them before the board, and they said, well, they're showing me 4 lives. I can pick what I want to do next time. And I don't want to be a man. I think I want to be a woman. And I don't know about life as an Eskimo. That might not be much fun. Or living in the jungle. But they said I'm going to have to do them all eventually. Which order do I want to do them in? And they'll pick the one they want to come back as next. And they want to say the hard ones, split it off as long as they could. Are you following me, all of this? This is what all of you have gone through. We make the plan. We're going to come to the Earth School. This is all part of it. So anyway, you keep doing this until finally, maybe you learned all your lessons and you can graduate. Then you go back to God. It's a recycling thing. And I lost the thought there. When I lose the thought, it always comes back. But oh, well, we can come back to it. Anyway, this the whole program. Oh, I hate that when I lose a thought, but it'll come back. Okay. So when you graduate, then you'll be going on to something else that may be totally different. And I tell people, once you figure out what it is, your own life, you repeat the same lessons again and again. I have clients who draw the same kind of a man into their life again and again and again. When are you going to learn that lesson and move on? Because that's the way it works. Again and again, the same circumstance, the same type of people. And what means you're failing that grade in school. You have to keep doing it again and again until you get it right. Then you can move on. The next lesson may or may not be better, it may be worse, but at least it'll be different. You get out of that rut. Some people have been in a pattern of making the same mistakes for many, many lifetimes until they finally realize it, then they can move on. So this is the way you sign up for whenever you come into the Earth School, and you're all in it right now. And they said you can't get out of it until you have finished it. You got to graduate. You can't just say, I'm going to drop out of school, which would be nice sometimes, but you can't do it. So now something is happening in our time right now that is changing all of this. This is the way it has been for eons of time. And too many people are stuck on the wheel of karma. You keep coming back again and again and again. When are you going to get it right? When is it going to sink in? Making the same mistakes again and again and again. We're stuck on the wheel of karma. Well, right now, we are in one of the most important and amazing times in the history of the universe. And things had to change. They had to be different. I don't have enough time to go into the ET part, but I will tell you, they have been with us since the very, very beginning. They are the ones who created life on Earth. The seeding of the planet, we all came from them. And I usually have a little more time. I go into the whole background. I've written many books about this, but they have been taking care of us since the beginning of time. That's why in my UFO research, I've been doing UFO cases for over 25 years. I have never found any negativity because I know why they're coming. I know what their purpose is, and it is positive and beautiful. Because I speak at all the UFO conferences in the world, and the other investigators don't like me because they keep saying, you've not found the truth. You haven't found the horror and the evil. So that's because it does not exist. Because I work at such a deep level to get away from the emotional that the person is carrying. If they think they've had a bad experience, that's what they're going to get through these lighter levels that are hypnotists use. By going deeper, you go to the real story of what happened, and we're able to get tremendous amounts of information. As my first book was The Custodians, it was my 25 years, and I found, working with this, and I found the answer to every question you could possibly ask about UFOs and ETs. They have been taking care of us since the beginning of time. We are their children. Their job is to watch over us and take care of us. Now because they did create us, and that's what it's all about. I don't have a lot of time to go into, in the new book, I'm going to go into more about the UFOs from a different perspective, because it's not, a lot of the stuff is not at all what you think it is. I am constantly finding out more and more information, and it's growing and evolving. But that's why some of these are called watchers. Their job has been to watch Earth and take care of it and see where it's going. Now, when life on Earth was created, they said, let's give this beautiful planet a creature with intelligence and free will and see what he does with it. We are the only planet in the universe that has free will. And I've had people go to past lives when they were on other planets and other universes where they didn't have free will. And it was not happy. They were not a good life at all. They could hardly wait to get out of that life. But this one free will is very, very important. And they said, let's give them free will and see what they're going to do with it. Then they came up with another directive. This is a Star Trek directive, and it's not fiction, it is real. Okay, we give them free will, they can do anything they want, and we cannot interfere. We cannot interfere with the development of a civilization. We got to let them do what they're going to do and just see how they do it. And so along the line, as the species began to develop, they came and gave them the next advancement. This is what Giorgio was talking about last night. Everything he was saying, I've found and I've written about, where they came and lived among the people. Every culture in the world has the legend of the culture bringer. The Indians have the corn woman who brought corn and showed them how to plant. Other civilizations have the legends of the ones that give fire. They teach them how to hunt. There's always someone who is a culture bringer. Every culture in the world has these legends. And in all of them, the culture bringer always comes from the sky or from across the sea to live among them, to teach them the next advancements. And because they can live as long as they want to, they have conquered disease, they don't die until they're ready to die. They lived among these people for so long that they began being treated as gods, just like Giorgio said, because they didn't understand anything different. And I've had people who were these so-called gods, and they were living among these developing civilizations, and they said, why do they treat us like gods? We're not, we're just beings. This is just our job. So they were doing this. They were giving him the next development that they needed at the time. And I said, then they have to stand back and watch and see what they're going to do with it. And I said, okay, but isn't that interference if you go in and show them how to do these things instead of being the observer? They said, no, we give it to them as a gift one time. What they do with it is free will. Because they said many times they have given a civilization something and they turned around and used it in the wrong way. And, in our time too, they turn around and use it as a weapon. They've done that many times in the past. Now, in the time of the Aztecs and the Mayans, whenever they turned to sacrifice, when they were cutting the hearts out, they said at that time they were teaching them medical practices and how to do surgery. But they didn't understand, and they turned, I think maybe the wise man had died, they didn't know what the reason for it was, and so they turned into cutting the heart out to present it to the gods. And in our time too, they give us an advancement and we turn it into a weapon. So I said, okay, could you come back and tell them they're not doing it the way you wanted them to use it? They said, that's interference. Give it to them one time as a gift. What you do with it is free will. And we can just stand back and shake our heads and say, what are these kids up to? But they cannot interfere because that is the rules. So anyway, this is the way it's been down through time. Now they can't live among us because there's too many people. So now when the next advancement is ready to come into our time period, it is put out in the atmosphere as an idea. And whoever gets it is the one who invents it. They don't care who invents it as long as it's in the time period, because you always hear about people all over the world working on the same invention at the same time. And I've talked to people all over the world who are doing this. There are many that I've spoken to who are working on free energy, and it's definitely going to be real. And I asked them one time, well, should I put these people together? Could they be working together? They all have the same idea. They said, no, I would interfere with it. Let them all work independently. You put them together, it dilutes the power and the energy. Whoever invents it first will be the one to get the credit. It doesn't matter as long as in our time period. So this is how the inventions are coming into our time now, is just by putting it into the atmosphere, and then it is where it's supposed to be. Okay, so they've been doing this forever. They've always taken care of us. Now, the only time they could possibly interfere is if we got to the point we were going to destroy the world. Then they would have to step in and stop us. Because if we did that, they said it would disrupt the entire solar system and even out into the galaxy. And people said, well, what does it matter, a little bitty planet like Earth? And we are a small planet, isolated over here in this part of the solar system. We're isolated on purpose. We are quarantined. They don't want our violence contaminating the rest of the population out there. So we are isolated over here until we get our act together. Then they'd be more than welcome to have us come in with them. But people said, well, what would it matter, a little bitty planet like us, if we did blow ourselves up? They said, everything is in order, everything is planned. And if one planet like this destroyed itself, it would have reverberations throughout the solar system. It would have reverberations all the way through the universe. Also, it would have reverberations into other dimensions. There are dimensions all around us all the time. There are people living in those dimensions. There are cities, there are civilizations. We can't see them because they're vibrating at a different frequency. It's just like when you watch a propeller blade or a fan blade, when it speeds up, it becomes invisible. They're vibrating at a different frequency, but they're there. The ETs know how to go back and forth between these dimensions. And as she was saying in the book Twitters, and I've had many, many cases of that, we constantly go back through dimensions too, and we're not even aware of it. But these dimensions are all around us. And they said if we were to blow this planet up, it would also have reverberations into those dimensions. And it would be like undeclared war on those innocent civilizations. So we cannot destroy this planet. That's the one thing they could step in and stop us. Now, down through the history of the Earth, there have been many, many civilizations that have risen to the height of civilizations, much more than we are today. They were highly developed mentally, and they could do things with their minds that we can't even begin to do. Atlantis was one of them, but that was not the only one. There were many, many others before that that went down. When they reached the height, I have several stories in my books about this. One of them where they succeeded in blowing a hole in the ozone layer, which sounds familiar, doesn't it? Scientists were experimenting and they went too far and they created a hole in the atmosphere in the ozone. The heat of the sun came through and burned large places of the earth. And this is where the large deserts in the world came from. Because at one time they were very lush, beautiful civilizations, and they said nothing will ever grow there again. That was one time. There have been many, many times when we have destroyed, civilizations have destroyed themselves because of what they were doing. And Atlantis was another one. But many times they have had to come in and step in and stop it because it was getting to the point that they could really harm the earth. And I did get some information. This is in the new book I just published about 3 waves that I'd never heard before about Atlantis. I thought I knew why it went down, because the scientists misused the power of their mind, they misused the power of the crystals, and to where it did cause big disruption. Everything is always the men, guys. I'm sorry, but it is always the men. The men always want the power and the greed, and they have a beautiful, wonderful world, and all of a sudden they're wanting more and more and more. And to where I knew they were going against the laws of nature because they were interbreeding animals and humans. And I have a lot of cases of those too in the books. And they said that could not be allowed because they were going against the laws of nature. They kept experimenting with all kinds of weird things. So I thought I knew the reason why Atlantis had to go down, because they were violating the rules of nature and wanting too much and causing disruption. But I had a case just this last year, and I think I put it in the 3 ways, that gave me an explanation I had never heard before of why Atlantis had to go down. And when I asked them, I said, I thought I knew all the reasons. I've never heard this reason before. They said, that's because we have never told you before. We never told anyone until now. And what it was, they said they were working with dark matter, which I think you could think sounds like antimatter. The scientists, they said, were working with dark matter and doing things they weren't supposed to be doing with it. And scientists always want to learn more and more and more. They don't worry about the consequences. Look at the HARP project, all of those. They don't care about what happens. Look at the atomic bomb. We could have blown up the world when we did that because we could have ignited all the hydrogen atoms in the air. But the scientists don't care. They just want to experiment. So in this case, they said they were working on dark matter. And I said, what were they doing? They said they were trying to create their own universes, their own wormholes. Now, what does that sound like? Those of you who know, you know what's going on right now, don't you? The collider experiments. You heard of those, haven't you? The collider experiments. Okay, I write about it in the book. If you look it up on the internet, you'll see it. It was going on this last year. These scientists were trying to create a wormhole, trying to create a new universe. And they have built this huge machine. They said it is the most powerful machine in the history of the world to shoot atoms and things at each other. And the explosion, they said, could, they're hoping, create a new universe and create a wormhole. And this is why they always say, we want you to know these things because you're repeating the same mistakes now. Well, these scientists that are doing the collider experiment are working with antimatter. And this is what they said they did in Atlantis. They were working with dark matter. And when they were doing it, it got away from them. And it began to destroy the grids of the earth. And they said the grids of the earth, because of this, they're working with the, it's hard for me to understand, it has to do with the atoms and all of that in the wrong way. It began to act on each other and began to collapse the grids of the earth. So they said we had to step in and destroy it and stop it. Because if it would have continued, the entire earth would have collapsed. All the grids collapsed, and it would have had an escalating effect, and the grids of the entire solar system, the grids of the whole universe would eventually all collapse on itself. This is what they keep saying they're afraid of. So they said we had to step in and destroy the population at that time. And I'd never heard that explanation before. But that was one time. So they said we don't do it unless it becomes an absolute emergency. And naturally, when that happens, life starts over again from scratch. Because they said it's like blowing the fuse. You can no longer have the powers, the mind powers, the psychic powers you had at that time. You've got to pull the plug. Everybody starts over again as savages from the ground up all over again to build a civilization. And now we're at this point where we finally got a civilization again. Because they said so much time is wasted when you have to start all over again. Every time they've had to step in and stop the civilization, start all over again, all over again. They don't like that. And they said, right now, we are getting to this point again. And they don't want to have to start over again. They want us to continue because we have this beautiful, wonderful future ahead of us. So what happened? They were been watching the earth, just watch us and see what's going on, shaking their heads and thinking, I don't know what these kids are up to now, but it's, all they can do is say, well, they have free will, let's go ahead and do it. The thing that got their attention was right after World War II, 1945, the end of World War II, when we dropped the first atomic bomb. They said, we better get down there and see what these kids are up to. They're playing around with something they have no idea the power of it. So they came down and they said, we were not supposed to have atomic power yet. We were not ready for it. That when we were supposed to have it, it would be used for positive, for good. And I said, well, we use atomic power for good, used for electricity. They said it will never be what it was supposed to be because when the atomic bomb was invented, it has this aura of death as a weapon and negativity. So it will never be what it was supposed to be. We weren't supposed to have it yet. So they knew if we were playing around with something we didn't understand. They said, these kids can't even take care of their own lives. They're stuck on the wheel of karma. We just came through World War II and all this horrible devastation. They can't handle their own lives. They're never going to be able to handle something this powerful that could destroy the world. What are we going to do? And so, it would be nice if you could just come in and say, stop it. But they're not allowed to do that. That's interference. So what they decided to do, they went back to the councils. There are councils over everything, and they have councils every morning. There are rules and regulations that run everything. Nothing is by chance. They went back to the councils, and they're saying, well, what are we going to do? We can't just go in there and stop them. They came up with a plan that I think was just brilliant. They said, we can't interfere from the outside. What about if we influence from the inside? So what they decided to do, the people on Earth are too caught up on the wheel of karma, repeating the same mistakes over and over again. We got to bring in souls who are not caught in that. Souls who are pure, who have never known violence, who have never been trapped on the wheel of karma. That's what we have to do. So, and I've had this through many, many, many clients. That's why I put the pieces together to form this whole theory. They said the call went out for volunteers. Earth is in trouble. Who wants to go and help? And they asked for volunteers to come and help Earth. These are pure souls, never been to Earth. They're not contaminated. They've never known karma. Now, these souls came from other places. And I'm seeing it constantly now. The only ones I have now who are going back to the typical past lives are the ones who still have karma to repay. The majority of the clients I see now are what I call the first timers, are the volunteers. Because many of them came from the source. They never started on this journey that we're on. They remained with the source. They remained with God. They had no reason to come. And when I'm talking to them, and they said, well, again, I know they're in a body. I'm talking to this body that's laying there on the bed. I know they did come. And I said, why did you come? And they all say the same thing. We heard the call. And we wanted to help Earth. So they come in. Imagine what it'd be like with never having any other lives at all, and always been with the pure, the beautiful love, and never experiencing anything to come into this mess that we call Earth. Because when I talk to them when they come in, they said, oh my gosh, what was I thinking of? They said, the body is so dense, it's so heavy, and they've been used to being free, and all of a sudden they feel trapped in a body. And I've had them, they're on the spirit side, and they said they were having meetings, and they'll say, who wants to go and help Earth? Earth is in trouble. And one woman said, I stupidly raised my hand. They get down here, and they, naturally you come in, you forget all these things. Well, another place they've come from is they were ETs. That's what I mean. An ET is just a being. It's wearing a different costume, playing a different part. And many of these were quite happy. They were living on spaceships. They were living on other planets. Many of them had evolved to the point they were light beings, living in other dimensions. They didn't have to have any bodies. They were having beautiful, wonderful lives, but they were doing. They had no desire to leave the spaceship. They were living, doing their work. But the same thing, who wants to go and help? They're saying, okay, I guess I'll go. And in the 3 waves, I have many cases that I've done where they did come from other planets and from other spaceships and things like that. One thing I think is interesting, what I found, now see, well, when they come into the body, they don't have any karma. They're not on this school. But if they begin to accumulate karma, they're going to be stuck here. So many of them come in with a sheet or a covering over their bodies, their souls, so they will not accumulate karma. Because they know once they accumulate karma, they're going to be stuck here and have to come again and again. So they have a protection to keep them from accumulating it. So they can finish their job and go back to what they're doing. The amazing thing is I found many of these people who have come from spaceships, and on spaceships, they can live thousands and thousands of years. And some of them, this other part of them, I don't want to get too complicated, but this is only one fragment. You are just a fragment of your whole entire soul. The other fragments, what we call facets, it's just like a diamond with facets, all living other lives. And you can't know about it because it'd be too confusing. But they send a fragment, a piece of themselves to live a life on Earth. Now, the other being, the other one on the spaceship is still going about his business there. Other times, they put the body of the space person into like a sarcophagus, a suspended animation to keep it alive until the soul comes back, and then it can finish its job here, then it can go back and continue its life on the spacecraft. Is this making some sense to you? And many of these people have dreams that they're seeing things going on spacecrafts, and they don't know what it is. But they finish their job here, and then they're going to go back because they have no desire to stay in this. They have perfectly beautiful life there. They want to go back to the other planets. They want to go back to what they're doing. This is just like an assignment like you do when you're in the military. Go over here for a lifetime and help them. So these are all people who have volunteered to come. But Earth is such a very difficult place to live that they come in here, and it's very, very hard on them. Now, I get emails and correspondence from all over the world. They always tell me the same thing. I don't want to be here. I don't like it here. I don't belong here. I don't like the violence. I don't like the emotions. I want to go home. I don't know where home is, but I know it's not here. So they're on a very difficult assignment because they don't understand what's happening. So, and now that I've done these radio shows, I do the coast to coast, and after we do the coast to coast show, I get 3,000 emails a day. And we hear these same things from everybody. And we get emails from all over the world. I think, and they said, I'm so glad you're saying this. I thought I was the only person in the world that felt this way. You don't know what it feels like to know I'm not alone out there. Others are having these same feelings. So I ended up dividing these up into 3 waves. I was doing it according to their age and the characteristics of each one. So the first wave would now be, they were born right after the war, right after the dropping of the bomb. That's when the first ones began to come in. And look what happened at that time. We had the baby boomers. Whereas the baby boomers, I always thought were, because of nature, when you have a war and wipes out so many people, they replenish. But they said the baby boomers were a lot of these new volunteers coming in at that time. So anybody born after 1945 would very likely could be a first waver. But I've had some people tell me, I have these characteristics and I'm in my early 60s. So some of them may have been forerunners. Okay, the first wave had it the hardest of all because he actually didn't want to be here. But they're the first ones to come. Now, they definitely don't like Earth. They don't like the violence. Emotions frighten them, especially anger and fear, strong emotions. They can't handle it. They don't like it. And they always saying, I want to go home. I've had some people tell me, I can remember as a little kid, 4 years old, standing in the kitchen telling my mother, I want to go home. And the mother would say, but you are home. And he said, no, this is not home. But they have, many of them, they have good homes, they got good families, good jobs, but many of them want to kill themselves. And many of them have attempted it because they really don't want to be here. I had one client a few weeks ago who said, tried to kill myself 3 times. It didn't work, so I guess I got to stay. With suicide, you don't get out of it anyway. So anyway, they this is how badly they want to go. The first wave have had it very difficult. So they would be 50s, thereabouts now, 40s, 50s. I wrote the book Keepers of the Garden. That was the first case I ever had, first timer. He came from outer space, and I'd never heard of it before. I found in that book was written in the 80s. Now I have hundreds and hundreds of these, and they're mentioned in many of my other books. Now the second wave, I would think would be 30s. My daughter says don't try to stick too strict on these ages because you really can. 30s, maybe early 40s, somewhere in there, maybe down into the 20s. The second wave are what we call antennas, generators, channels of energy. They have come in just with an energy, a loving energy that's supposed to affect everybody else. They don't have to do anything. Many of these people work out of their homes. They don't want to be around people. They're very good people, but they don't have these same characteristics as the other ones did. Now, both the first and second wave, many of them don't want children because they know having children is going to create karma and they don't want to be stuck here. I've had some clients who have managed to have children. It's very, very difficult for them to do it. But they said, well, they wanted to have the experience because their bodies were not made to handle this. But these people are degenerate energy. They can walk through a crowded mall or a store. Their energy will affect anybody they come in contact with. That's the way it's supposed to be. They are generating positive energy to help with this uplifting of the world. And the irony of the second wave is they don't like people. They don't like the energy. They don't like all the junk that's going on out there. So they would much rather stay home and stay isolated and not mix with people. But they're supposed to be doing it. They're supposed to be out being around people anyway. So the second wave, when they come and they'll ask me, what am I supposed to be doing? They always want to know what's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? Usually it'll come out, not supposed to do anything. You're just supposed to be. And later they'll say, well, I want to be doing something. They said, you are. You're doing it by just being. That's the second wave, or spreading the energy. The third wave, of course, are the children. The ones that Qumran we're talking about. These are the hope of the world, the new generation that are coming in. Now the DNA is being changed in everyone. It has to be in order to go into the new earth. The children are coming in with the DNA already in place. We're the ones that have to catch up. I find that I'm trying to watch the clock because I'm going to try to get a whole bunch in here as quick as I can anyway. But they are coming in to change the world. They are the gift of the world. As Cinnamon, we were talking about that too. They misunderstood because they're so highly advanced. But our DNA is being changed to catch up with this because it all has to be, if we vibrate differently to go into the new earth. I speak at conferences about the new children, and they had panels of these kids, and that's why I found out how they're thinking. But they had a TV show not too long ago, about a year or so ago, where some of these children, 10 years old, have already graduated from college. Many of them are forming their own organizations. They're just children already forming their own organizations. And guess what the organizations are for? To help the children of the world. They already know their mission. They're doing it. These are the hope of the world. This is the gift of the world. They said this is the new generation that's coming in. So these are the ones that will lead everybody into the new earth. Now we are moving into the new earth. The earth is a living being. It is going into its next incarnation. It's going to do it regardless. It took it longer to do this, but it is evolving like people do. It's going into its next incarnation. So it doesn't care if we go with it or not. It just assumed we didn't go. We're like fleas on a dog. Look at what we do to the earth. But it is going to go. It's moving into another dimension. The vibrations and the frequencies of this planet are moving into the next dimension. And if we want to go with it, we have to change. We have to evolve. And our vibrations and frequencies also have to change to match it. But this is what we're talking about, the new earth, and separating and going into the new frequency. The first time in the history of the universe that an entire planet has changed its vibration and is moving into another dimension. This never happened before. All the ETs, all the beings, everybody are out there watching. They said, this is the greatest show on earth. Are we going to be able to do it? Are we going to be able to pull it off? It started about 2003, and we're at the height of it right now. People keep saying, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? You're in the middle of it now. And those of you who are aware of it know things are changing. You know the vibrations are different. Time is speeding up. You know something is going on. If you're in the middle of this, you know it's happening. Julie, okay, come on up here because she likes to help me with this part of this anyway. And I'm trying to get all this in. There's a lot to cover. But if we're going to go with it, now there's the old earth and the new earth. It's moving into a whole other dimension. If we're going to go with it, our vibrations and frequencies also have to change. This means the vibrations and frequencies of our body have to change. And it said they cannot change overnight because if it did, it would destroy the body. It has to happen gradually. So since 2003, our bodies have been changing. The frequencies and vibrations are speeding up in our own bodies as this moves. I just think of some other things I should have said back then, but you always think of things you should have said after the fact. Okay. You may be noticing changes in your body, and it's getting more frequent now. I think it just keeps getting different all the time. But it started in 2003. Now, it'll be subtle at first. There are many symptoms you will experience. You probably have already been experiencing for the last several years. It doesn't all these symptoms don't occur at the same time. But you may have some for a few days, and then they taper off. Then maybe a month or so later, or a week or so, you get another set of symptoms. You go to the doctor doesn't say there's nothing wrong with you. Of course, they're going to put you on a pill anyway. But it's because the frequencies are changing and our body is adjusting to it. And some of the symptoms that I've been told, high blood pressure, heart palpitations. This is the biggie. A lot of people are experiencing irregular heartbeat. And they keep saying, don't worry about these things because this is the body adjusting. And we have depression. Depression is a biggie. You'll go through a lot of that. And dizziness. Sometimes you'll go for several days being dizzy. But these things only last a few days and then they fade. And then maybe a week or so you'll get another one. What is headaches, joint aches and pains? Ringing in the ears is a big one because that is the energy is being raised. And I have clients coming to me for that. And they'll say, just tell them, turn it down. The energy is too strong. And you can visualize a dial. See the dial being turned down because sometimes they don't realize they're giving you too much. But it has to be gradual, otherwise the body can't handle it. So visualize, tell them it's too much energy, turn it down, and this will help with the ringing in the ears. What are some of the other symptoms? You think those are most of them? Somebody the other day had one that we had thought of. I think of it because somebody said, oh yeah, that sounds very much like it could be. But if you just go with it, go with the flow, don't get too upset and excited, it'll pass as the body adjusts to it. Older people are having more problems adjusting than the younger ones. The younger ones are coming in, they're already set. It's the ones in the middle, their bodies are adjusting to handle all of this. If you can't handle it, you're out of here. You can't adjust, you leave. That's not so bad. They're going to watch from the other side and see what happens. But if the frequencies become too hard, but you can talk to them and say, let's do it a little easier. Calm it down. It's a little hard on the body. Now, you probably notice your diets are changing. Are you noticing your diets are changing? Because in order for us to do this, the body has to become lighter. So you have to get away from heavy meats, especially beef and pork. This holds you down to the earth. You gotta have lighter foods. And through all of my clients, when they always want to know about their diets, it's always the same thing. They tell them the best diet, the best food to eat is live foods. Live foods mean fresh fruits and vegetables. And stay away from meats, especially beef and pork, with these hormones and the additives they're putting in there, and those are heavy. You can have some fish and chicken, but that's a lighter meat. But really stick with the fresh vegetables, organic if possible, and stay away from too much sugar, and drink lots and lots of water. They said the value of water is beyond belief. You can't believe the importance of water. There's one tiny, tiny thing in the water that we must have. So stay away from the sweet drink. They got me off of Pepsi a long time ago. It's all I ever used to drink was Pepsi. I listened to them. They got me off of it. I was a Pepsi-holic. But they stopped all of that. Okay. Those are most, they said, you will notice as you move into this, eventually you're not going to want to eat food. You're going to want liquids. And when I've said this on the radio, people will call in and say, I wondered why I wanted to make more smoothies. We're going to get more liquids. And eventually when it's done and we're over there into the new earth, you won't even want food at all. So that's eventually down the road, we won't have to eat. But that's when you go eventually. First, some people say, do I have to die to go? No, you will go in your physical body. This is a physical thing that is happening to the earth and to us. And in the beginning, you take your physical body. And after, I don't know how long it will be when we're over there, you will turn into a being of light. You won't need anything. But the new earth is so beautiful and so wonderful. Now, the old earth, we're leaving. It's the separating of the two. The old earth is where the negativity is. That's where all of the wars, all of the hurricanes, all of the earthquakes, all these things, the catastrophes are being left with the old earth. Those that are into too much negativity stay with the old earth. They can't change their vibration fast enough to go. It has to be a gradual thing. So they stay with the old earth. They said they've stayed with what they have created because that's their karma. They have to stay with that. Eventually, when they die, they will go somewhere where there's still karma to be repaid. They say, don't worry about it. Eventually, they're all going to get there anyway. But it's a separating. This is what's in the Bible, in the book of Revelations, when they talk about the new heaven and the new earth. Those they're taken, those are left behind. This is what they're talking about. But when St. John had the vision on the Isle of Patmos, he didn't realize it was going to be thousands of years before it happened. But well, we've had a lot of discussion about all of this because you know, at least we get into so many weird things. At least we can talk to each other about this because that was what I say right there. That was before that. Anyway, well, about the old and the new earth. Oh, because I have seen so many questions about this, and they said we can't answer all of your questions because we don't know what's going to happen. This has never happened in the history of a planet before. Oh, I think about 2012 when I'm thinking about it. Don't worry about 2012. It's just a date. It is not the end of the world. It's none of that. It is just a date. Now, I've had, you know, you remember the Mayans disappeared, and there were some other Indian group tribes that disappeared, and nobody knew what happened to them. I've had people go back to those time periods, and what happened was they developed to as a civilization to the point they didn't need to be on Earth anymore. They moved as a civilization into the new dimension. They changed their vibration and frequencies, and they moved, and as a smaller group. And when I've had people like that, and I said, well, why did you come back? Well, we thought we knew what it was like. We could help the others to get there. I had to say that a while ago. The reason the first wavers have had it so hard was because somebody had to be the trailblazer. Somebody had to be the pioneer to set the trail. And some of these people who did evolve and go on, they've come back to help show the way. But anyway, the Mayans did this. They knew they could see the future far enough to know when the next big event was going to happen, when the entire world would shift into another dimension. They estimated to be around 2012, and that's when they stopped their calendars because they could see this was when this was going to happen. It's not the end of the world. The end of the world as we know it, because it's going to be moving into this beautiful, wonderful new earth, and we are separating. Most of you know Annie Kirkwood. She wrote Mary's Message to the World. For a long time, we were doing lectures and panels and things together, and on one of the panels, she was telling everybody about a vision she had. And in the vision, she was shown the earth separating. And I have to hold this here. Hope you can hear me. She said she saw the earth as a ball. Then she saw the earth begin to pull apart the way a cell does when it begins to separate. And as it began to pull apart, suddenly there were two earths. The one sitting over here, she heard them saying, we did it, we did it, we did it. The one over here, she heard them say, poor thing, she died believing all that. So the one will not be aware of the others, just like it says in the Bible. Two people sleeping together, one is taken and one is left. Two people working in a field, one is taken and one is left. So they wouldn't be aware that anything has ever happened between the two. And when I talked about that at one lecture, this one man came up to me afterwards and he said, I want you to know I am a businessman. I'm logical. I don't think this way. This is the first time anything like this has ever happened. But he said, as you were describing the two earths in Mary's vision, Annie's vision, the whole auditorium disappeared. I was in outer space and I saw it happening just the way you said. So he went home and replicated it, reproduced it on his computer. And he said, you can use it in your book, just don't tell anybody where it came from. And I think it's been convoluted too. It shows the two earths, one is over the other, just barely, one is shining. That's the new earth as we separate from the old earth. Now, why don't you go ahead and tell them about what you were thinking about the, okay, because they said, nobody knows the answers to these things, but we do the best we can. We also tell people this is the best we can do. Okay.
Helen Hansel was able to win any competition she took part in. She was known as the contest queen because she had won 7.
When I was shown about how this is happening, and it goes along with what she's saying, that picture was replicated of what that one vision was. And I got a visual one day, and it happened with a very simple choice that I made, and it all comes down to choices. So, but first I want to, yeah, that would be right. Where she's talking about the two earths. What they showed me is like, okay, these two are superimposed over each other. So people are saying, they said, well, if this is happening, how does it look? I can still see all these things. These things are happening out there. I must still be, I'm on the old earth because look at all these horrible things that are going on. And that, so what, nothing's happening. And if you look at it, see the two are superimposed over each other right now. That's why you can still see. You're actually in the new earth now, okay? This stay
You
with
keep
that.
saying, when is it gonna happen? You're
You're
already
already
happening.
there. You're already there. It's just it's sitting here with the old Earth and superimposed over the other one. So you can still see what's going on the old Earth. All right. Now, but and when you see those things, I mean, you have to ask yourself because you're saying that's what's happening. It's in the world. It's
It's on the news.
But is it really happening to you? Is it really in your world? Okay, that's the distinction. Is it really your world? That can be. You can make it your world. You can get emotionally involved in it. You can watch the news and get all caught up in that and make it your world. And what you just did is you jumped from here to here when you did that. Okay, it's so easy right now to jump from one world to the other because they're sitting on top of each other. Now, as you make choices, and that's a huge part of this is the choices. You make choices of what you want to think, what you want to do. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? What you want, that moves you to this one. And every time you make a choice, you move. Okay? They start moving this way. And that's how they start separating. Another visual I was given was it's like if you just take what I just showed you and let's turn it sideways. And you have over here what represents it, showing it as red, deep red to me. And it was like all the intense emotions, heavy, intense, negative, well, just emotions, which is heavy. Okay, and it was going to over here, which what I can only assume would be the new Earth, was light and breezy. And it was like this light blue. And it was just ease and joy and peace, like that, okay? And all these places in between. So it's not just a bam, bam. And every time you make a choice, you're, see what's happening here? Okay, and you make a choice to move in this direction. Oh, I just do it. Oh, I like that. Oh, that's nice because you're moving in this direction. You make another choice and it might move you back this way. Oh, I get caught in the drama. Oh, whatever. Oh, that doesn't feel so good. Oh, okay. Let's make choices in this direction. So gradually you start making choices. It's all about your choices, and you're moving. And see what's happening is you start moving away from that. That was where these two they move away from each other. That's how it happens. Now, the first time, I was saying what she was saying to Pollyanna, when they first showed me, it was something simple I had made a choice on. And I said, well, I can do it this way or this way. And they said, yeah, there you go. That's the new Earth and the old Earth. I'm like, well, that's too simple. That is too simple. I said, because that's still happening. It's still over here. I can see it. And they said, yeah, if you want it to be. If you want that to be your world. And I was like, that's Pollyanna. It's on the news. It's on the news. It's real. If you want it to be. That's how simple it is. It's your choice, whether that's what you want to be your world. It's your thoughts that create your world. So you
create your own reality.
Exactly.
Everything in your life you put there.
Yeah. So you are the one that chooses which world and how your world will look and where you will be by your choices.
People are always saying, oh, are we just going to go bam when we're there? No, you're in it now. It's so gradual and subtle that you just suddenly they'll begin saying, things feel better. They look different. Things are going better. You're moving, and it's gradual like that. So it won't be sudden. That's why they said 2012 is just the culmination of the energy is building up to only a year from now that the energy will push us into the next dimension. But it's very gradual. You'll feel it in your bodies. You'll know something is happening. That's the main. Oh yeah, I forgot about it. I don't think there's going to be time for questions, but I have I forgot all about that. I have some pictures I want to show you of something that has never been seen before. And I'm going to go in the new book, and I thought, well, I can present them tonight. I had a client come to see me, and she said she'd taken these pictures and she held on to them for several years. She didn't know what to do with them. And she said, I want you to have them because I think maybe you will use them in some way. I sat on them for many years because I didn't understand what it was either. But when I had the woman there, we had a session. She wanted to know what were these pictures. And the subconscious explained everything. And this is part of the energy that's happening now with the moving us into the new Earth. And it's been around for a long time now. But what do we do? Lay on here? I thought we had to move something. Okay, I'm used to transparency. Her and her daughter both came to see me. They were outside one night. A big bright star in the sky. And people think UFO. So she got her camera and she began taking pictures of this bright star. But when they developed the film, something totally different is on the camera. Okay, let's see. There's a whole series of them, and you will see that it moves and changes. It morphs. Now, can you see it? Okay. Turn them upside down and we can. Are you able to see these? Okay. They didn't see any of this until they had the film developed. Julie, when she first saw these, she said it was doing something to her just looking at them. Are you feeling anything? It's supposed to affect you. That's why they said I'm supposed to show. If you're feeling anything in your body. I think that's a good one. But I put them in the book, it's going to have to be black and white. The colors are different. And they didn't see it moving at all. All they saw was this bright light like a star. Can you just make it out? Is it clear enough? You can see? Okay. Julie said when she saw it, it did something to inside of her. She could feel something. So I don't know if you could feel it or not. Okay, and I just made some notes here. This is going in the next book about when I had the session with them. I want to know what this was. They said this is the higher forces that are working with the planet, the ones that are trying to keep it in balance, working with the energy grids on both sides of the dimensions, this side and the other side. I said in the picture, it looks almost like a physical object. They said it's an entity. It's elastic. It can spread over a lot of territory by expanding. And it's working on balancing the planet with the energy work. And this even goes all the way down into the center of the planet, and it's enveloping the whole planet like it's elastic, an embryonic sac as it goes all over the world and is balancing the earth. And I said, well, when they first saw it in the sky, it looked like a star. They said camouflage. I said, it didn't show up until the pictures were enlarged. It seemed to change shape. They thought it was a physical object of some kind. The human eye and the human physical body is not on that vibrational level to be able to see it with the naked eye. Sensitive people can feel its presence, but they can't see behind the camouflage, but the camera picks it up. That was why they were able to get pictures of it. And I said, well, why were they allowed to photograph it? They said, because other people need to see it. And now is the time, and we're moving along on schedule. But this was 2006 when I had the session. I said, it appears to change shape in the pictures. Yes, it changes size and shape depending on what it's doing. It accommodates itself to the environment it's working in, or the dimension that it is working in, the energy makeup of the dimension. It is a light being. It is an entity. It has elasticity. It's ever moving, constantly moving, with pieces coming off of it that rotate around it and intermesh, and they go all the way down to the center of the earth. And I said, well, what does it normally look like? Or is it just the way the camera picks it up? It wouldn't look normally like that on this side. They mean their side. But through your atmosphere and your dimension, that's what it looks like here if the camera were to pick it up. It would look different in another star system. Things are affected by their environment. Well, where it comes from, what does it really look like? It's a huge, huge vapor of light. It is so big you can't comprehend it. It's actually much further away than you think it is when you're taking these pictures. And it is photographed as smaller because it is so huge and it's much further away, and it's appearing as a light in the sky, but actually it's from a long, long way away. And it's moving, and it's huge, huge thing. Anyway, it's here to help the earth. It's the one that's helping change the energy and the frequency of the earth as we go into this. So there's a lot of help out there, and that's what they said in here too. Don't ever think you're alone, because this is an example. There are always beings here helping you all the time. But it says this is affecting the DNA also of everything. I think you said when you first saw it, it was almost like you felt it through your DNA.
I remember now, I kept looking at, so I was feeling these vibrations and everything, and I don't know what this is, but it's important. That's all I could feel, is this is really, really important. Because it said the image that's in the sky works on the outside into the center of the earth. It affects everything, the people, the animals, the plants, anything in the vicinity. Your DNA is also being affected because DNA is energy encoded into physical matter. This is light work. It is part of the plan of the planet as it grows and develops and moves into the new earth, the new dimension. This is not the first time this thing in the sky has performed this type of work. This is what it does, and it comes when it's needed. So it says you need to know these things. Anyway, I've had some people send me pictures of UFOs. They think it's UFOs, like that scribble parts. And they said it was a UFO. They picked it up and they took the pictures. Anyway, I said, most people think of UFOs, and they went emphatic. No, this is not a UFO. It's higher than the angelic realms. Physicists will understand it one way. Scientists will have other explanations, but others will feel it at a soul level. So I've been holding on to those pictures since 2006, yeah. And I thought, well, maybe now I understand enough about the new earth. Maybe we can talk about it, and I can put it in a book and maybe understand it. But isn't it amazing? They said the human body and the human eye can't see it because the frequency and vibration it is vibrating at. We see it as a star, as a light. The camera picks it up in a different way.
But the woman, she gave it to me and she said, I think maybe you're the one that can do something with it. She didn't want to just give it to anybody. So this is the first time I've ever shown the pictures and talked about them. So I'm hoping, can you understand a little bit about it, or is it too deep? You understand? Okay, so you're the first ones to know about this anyway. So we are advancing and we're moving. This is a very amazing time you're living in right now. Wonderful, wonderful things are happening. And for you to move, the things you have to do, if you want to go over the new earth, first you got to get rid of karma. Remember I said karma holds you with the old earth.
Oh, that's
You have to come back and repeat. You got to get rid of the karma. The first thing to do that with that is to forgive. Don't hold on to anything anymore. It doesn't matter. What if you had a terrible childhood? What if you had parents that abused you? Let it go. What if you had a bad marriage? Let it go. It's no longer important. Holding on to it, you create karma that holds you, and you have to turn it back and come back again and again and again. Release it, let it go. It's not worth it. And I tell people the way to release it. You can't do it face to face, forgiving people. Sometimes it's too difficult. Some people say, you don't know what they did to me. I can't forgive them. But sometimes you can't say it face to face. And sometimes the person you're still holding on to and angry at has died. So what you do is you do it mentally. Picture that person in your mind, whether they're alive or dead. Picture that person in your mind, and you say, remember you made contracts when I said earlier, when you come in here, they're playing their part. So when you picture them in your mind and you say, we tried, we really tried, it's not working. Let's tear up the contract and see yourself tearing up the contract and throwing it away. You can do that. It's not easy, but this is what you have to do. Then mentally say to the person, I forgive you, I release you, I let you go. You go your way with love, I go my way. We don't have to be connected anymore at all. And you gotta mean it. It's not easy, but it'll work. When you do that, they no longer have any hold on you. They can't push your buttons. You know, if it's a game, a lot of people like to push your buttons and they know what to say and what to do to set you up. Once you do that and release them and let them go, they can't push your buttons anymore. They may try, but it's not gonna work because it's not important to you anymore. You wanna come back and do it again with those same people? That's the law if you don't release them and let them go. This is the number one thing you've got to do if you want to move to the new earth. Let all the karma go. Forgive these people and then try not to make any more karma. The second thing you've got to do if you're going to go, get rid of fear. Fear holds you to the old earth. You saw our t-shirts, didn't you? Fear is an illusion. Fear is for entertainment purposes only. They say fear is not real. The only thing that is real is love. Fear holds you. It makes you afraid. As I said, don't buy into the stuff you hear on the news. Don't buy into all this stuff that are people trying to make you afraid. They get you scared of these imaginary diseases they come up with. Afraid of, oh, we're in this economic crisis, the world is coming down. And we don't even listen to that stuff. People email us and say, well, what about the economic crisis? It's a what economic crisis? That's not our world. So don't buy into all this fear. You create your own reality. Everything in your life you would put there, you can have that world because that's what you want in your world. You create your reality. You want that other world, okay. You want to buy into the fear. Another thing I forgot too, when you're forgiving everybody and let it go, another thing you got to do, you got to forgive yourself. That's not easy. Remember, it takes two. You always had a part in all of this, and you're part of the play that you're presenting. So you forgive yourself. And it has to be done because there's no place in the new world for any of this. That's why they keep saying we're no longer accumulating karma anymore, but you've still got this stuff you got to get rid of. There's no place for karma in the new world. So does this make sense to you? If you want to go and it's going to be beautiful and wonderful, or do you want to stay with this other earth that's destroying itself? It's up to you. If you want to go, forgive, let go of karma, and then let go of fear. And we're in for a beautiful, wonderful experience. That's where we're all headed. And I'm out of time and I have no time for questions. So I hope I give you a lot of information anyway.
Okay. So there you have a 30 years of
Any questions?
research crammed into, 80 minutes, 70 minutes.
I have a quick question that I didn't grasp. That she was talking in the beginning about having this knowledge bestowed to her. By whom was it being bestowed?
Say that again, the knowledge was?
Yeah, she said she was told this, that, and the next thing. Who was telling her that?
When she's hypnotized these people, and they're very intense, she's always asking them, go to the most significant former lifetime. And so while there's a person there that she's talking to, it's really the soul of that person in that earlier lifetime is talking to her.
It's not, she's not just getting these vibes from space.
No. She's got tape recordings. She's got tape recordings out the wazoo. The books, most of her books are really transcriptions. She says very little, and she asks questions to try and get them to sound off like, okay, you've now landed someplace. What does it look like? Look down at your feet. What are you wearing? Oh, I'm wearing sandals. I've got a robe around me. I'm in a desert somewhere. I'm a man. I'm not a woman. All of this. So that's who she's talking to.
But it seems like she said at times some other level breaks through and interrupts things.
The other
like
thing that breaks through is what she called the subconscious, which I would say is really the soul. So the soul remembers these other lifetimes in all of the different incarnations, but then the soul is able to step back from all that. And it says, the reason why I took you to look at this particular lifetime is you're going to learn this lesson. And that's the most important thing to take away from this. In the lifetime that you're living now. That's why I want to show you this, so you can apply it right now.
It seems to be some kind of guidance from
Yeah.
the soul.
Yeah, the other thing that she learned in doing this was that what she called the subconscious, or I would just say it's the soul of that person, that once they could see, for example, remember the person went to her because they were sick. They had some sort of illness of some sort. They've got ringing in their ears, or they've got kidney problems, or whatever it is. That she would take them into this earlier life, and they would see the problem was encountered there in this earlier life, and you're simply remembering it in this life. But then the soul or the subconscious could actually start to work on that person in this life, and they would actually get cured. So she had examples of people that showed up that had cancer, that were cured of cancer in 90 days. So
she also said that that many of these people were, quote, first timers. They wouldn't have the karma creating this past problem, yet they still went to her. So she would be a magnet.
Because they felt miserable. They said, maybe you can help me. Maybe there's something from an earlier life. And they discovered, yeah, the earlier life wasn't on planet Earth. It was in some other solar system, some other galaxy, someplace else. Or some of these people actually were pure spirits. She calls them light, but they're simply spiritual. So this is, these are things that in working with Ron Cowan, remember we kept harping on having this matter and dark matter, and then having the realm for the souls or the spirit. Those are those compactified dimensions. So she's pointing out that there is not only these other compactified dimensions with all kinds of energy in it, but there are people there that are totally plugged into the collective unconsciousness, into what she called the source, or others would call God, and they just experience love. It feels like a light washing over them. They cannot get enough of it. There's incredible compassion, and then they come to Earth and they feel miserable. It's like, what happened? This is like terrible. But they came to Earth as first timers because of what she said, that it was recognized that Earth was having all these problems, and it's time to try and help Earth get through all this stuff.
It's kind of like needing a vacation and somebody sends you to Syria.
Right. Yeah. The other thing that she pointed out was having these different vibrations or frequencies, so that we're apparently all resonating at some set of frequencies, but if we shift it just a little bit, that takes you into a different set of dimensions or a different realm, okay, than the one that we're in, and that's a you know, how to say it, the point that they were making there was there's apparently 10 levels of vibration, and with the rock being at the bottom, for example, and we're apparently, humans are at level 5, angels are one notch up at level 6, so there's a bunch of levels between 5 and 6, you know, probably an infinite number. And then someone like Jesus of Nazareth was at level 7, and the thing that you would call God is up at level 10. And so everyone is striving to get up to level 10. We made it to level 5 so far, and we're getting coached by the angels at level 6, and so forth. So that was the thing is, it isn't just one person that's telling her this. She's done so many of these hypnotic regression sessions that she has tens of people that are independently, she's not leading them into this, they're independently saying this to her, okay? And so, you know, you could say what you want, it's just, it's hard to make up that complicated a lie when you actually look at what's going on. But it's of course not accepted. She, you know, what is she doing? And she herself has passed on. I think I pointed out she passed on in what, 2014.
I don't know.
It's anyway, and so she was that was her daughter that was sitting next to her. Okay.
You said there was going to be a big change in 2013. Maybe that's when she moved.
2012.
Yeah, 2012. They said it's going on right now. So the question is, we're now 10 years away from 2012. You know, so what in the world is going on? So we'll see. You know.
She's made dozens of videos, and Bart has been listening to them a lot.
And her books too.
And her book. I've just been hearing it out of the corner of my ear. So I think it's time to say Bart is the mathematician and the physicist type, and he's into this kind of thing. And I'm the new age bimbo, and I'm not.
Yeah.
Bruce, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Bruce, are you there?
Yeah, Bruce. You're
Okay. Hi.
I have a question regarding things you've said in the past about being telepathic. And I'm curious about your experience with that. When you feel connected to whomever telepathically, do you feel that you are able to convey any kind of thoughts or feelings to that person?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and vice versa. There is an exchange.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, Bruce, you stressed that it's a very deep engagement. That it's more than just chit chat. It's on many levels.
The reason I asked the question to try to get a little clarity there is that, you know, I'm totally agnostic as to the veracity of anything without regard to how far out it is. I don't discount anything. Having said that, it's far easier for me to visit that that she has created a telepathic link with all of these people, and she's conveying these concepts that they are then in fact regurgitating out loud for a recording, that's an easier thing for me to believe than the substance of everything that she's saying. So I say that, to reiterate, not wishing to discount the veracity of what she's saying or not. I don't know, but I'm just saying that the telepathic link is a far easier place for me to visit.
Yeah, Steve, that's possible. It's just that when she does these things, remember, 99 out of 100 are just totally vanilla regression to a previous life, and they're a bookkeeper, or they're a candlestick maker, or whatever it is. Okay, and they have a perfectly nondescript life. And that's what it is. There's nothing out of the ordinary there, but it's that 1 out of 100 that leads to these things that she was talking about, that she distilled, and she gets enough of those 1 out of 100s. These are the things that are unexpected. Look at where she's coming from. She's saying, I was in this little town in Arkansas. Well, maybe she has a great imagination, but to fabricate that someone wants to reincarnate as a rock is a little bizarre.
Well, think of every great writer, especially the sci-fi people, think of the amazing things that they come up with. So just listening to her, she clearly is enormously bright, and I have no doubt that she would have the ability to be this creative. I don't know whether it's emanating from her or elsewhere, but I'm just sharing. We had a discussion previously where I think it was with you, Marjorie, where I was sharing that I thought that some of the astrological things that come up might very well be be it a telepathic link or some different types of sensitivity that could be another explanation rather than the given astrological explanation. I just try to visit alternative ways of looking at things, and so I tend to be very creative in terms of trying to find alternatives. That's all.
Yeah, but Steve, I agree with you about the astrology, that I think there are these archetypes, or each of these different planets has a very complex archetype, and that as they get closer or farther away, and they're triangulated in different ways at 90 degrees, 45 degrees, 135 degrees, that we get less or more of interactions with them versus some of these other things. And I think that is a real interaction, because for thousands of years people have been staring at these things, and you could take classes all through the Middle Ages in astrology.
I understand, but I mean, just think about, just speaking about the politics of the moment, and how you have scores of millions of people believing all manner of things, be they true, be they false, be they nonsense. The fact that there's a history of, it's the old saying of, to be a little vulgar, the saying of eat shit, millions of flies can't be wrong, that kind of a thing.
I never heard that one.
So all I'm saying is that I like to hear all the different ideas and the histories and whatnot, but invariably I just visit alternative perspectives. That's all.
No problem. I think it's fine. We welcome. We're simply presenting these things as different ways, different frameworks, different hypotheses, different things that people have come across. And, the main thing that Dolores Cannon has come back with is just, you really should not fear death. That you've incarnated a number of times, and it just, you learn something out of this life. You go, you take an assessment, and you lead the assessment, and other people are there that are, chiming in, but they're not. It's really you that say, I learned this, I didn't learn that. And okay, so you've got to go back and learn this again. You didn't do too good a job on it, and that's what happens.
Well,
So-
one of the things I've observed, it hasn't happened that often, but I can tune into a mind of a person who's just died. And the main thing they're interested in reviewing is all their love experiences. That's the most important thing. The negative things don't matter. They all want to review, and they go visit the people who they've had love experiences with. And also, I just like to kind of mention that this lady is tuning into, a level of experience in reality. But I've also experienced, this is some real, like the Dalai Lama, for example. I've tuned into his mind once or twice. And their comprehension of reality and humanity is so vast. It's kind of like incredibly intelligent. There's a vast intelligence involved in everything. And it's all understandable if you can get there, But this lady has got kind of the right idea that those sort of things do happen at a certain level. But there's much deeper levels that, like, for example, one of the biggest things I've seen is that the heart mind can be vastly intelligent in what it does perfectly every moment. It's like a whole different realm of reality. And that level is out there, and there's some people who are tuned into it. I am tuned into some of it, but I've encountered consciousnesses that are really tuned into a whole lot more, like it's all for real, but it's also very integrated. It's all interlinked in an incredibly beautiful, intelligent way. And that's sort of like the deeper reality that's actually out there.
Yeah, Dolores has said that in her books, and she touched on it in the talk just now, that some of these things, if you really got plugged into the quote, the really deep reality that's there, you as a human couldn't take it. Okay, the vibration would be so great it would just end up destroying your body. You'd kill yourself.
Well, that's not my experience, but my experience is basically it's so vast. Like part of your mind actually comprehends it, but it's absolutely beyond any kind of explanation whatsoever. But it's reality as it really is. But it's like a level of the mind that is so huge and vastly intelligent. It's kind of like beyond any kind of ordinary understanding at all. But it actually really is there, and you can sense it for real.
The other thing that she brought up is when you incarnate, you're gathering these new experiences in the life that you're in, and that basically the source of everything. That's why all these different lives were created. All these different souls were created so that the source by itself could gather these new experiences and evolve itself to a greater depth of what's really going on.
Well,
I
one
was
of the things,
thinking there was so much in common with the teachings of Kabbalah, and I doubt she's had any exposure to it. But in Kabbalah, they talk about these tiny shards of light that were splintered when the first creation didn't work the way it was supposed to, there were no, in the tree of life, there were no paths connecting the spheres. And it was too much energy. It couldn't be like downloaded properly, so it exploded. And we are those shards of light. I mean, it was kind of uncanny. And I just doubt that she's, maybe she has,
she didn't know.
but I don't think she read that anywhere. And that
Yeah, well,
our
all these-
job is to come back together. Sorry.
Well, all these laws of the mind have been observed in different ways, and they all
Right.
pop up all over the place. But one of the experiences I've had is that every person actually knows in a deeper part of their own mind exactly where they're heading and why and what happens. And in terms of the karma thing, that's a very serious interference in a certain way. Like karma really interferes with the deeper mind. And so when you have difficult karma, you know, like a lot of hate or something, like you don't have access to the deeper mind. But the reality is that the deeper mind is already there. It already knows exactly what is happening and why. And it's sort of unfolding in its own depth. Everyone has that. That's kind of like a reality of every person. And
And it's happening in parallel with what we're conscious of, which is the tip of the iceberg. I think that's what I.
yeah, but it may not be the tip of the iceberg at all. The tip of the iceberg actually is still quite hidden. And that's the kind of like the overview reality mind. I mean, every mind there's been thousands of lifetimes. You've been a being for a long time. So there's a incredible wisdom of understanding that's already in your deeper mind, but you don't have access to it, mainly because of the karma, but it's still there. And
Yeah, Steve, the thing she talked about, these first timers, that was their first incarnation on Earth, but they had many lives in other planets, other solar systems, whatever. Oh, I know what I remembered. Yeah, when the physicists have dealt with this notion of the big bounce and having inflation in the universe occur, one of the side effects of that is it requires the creation of multiple universes. And that's exactly what she cited from all these people, that some of these souls that she's talking about came not from other galaxies, they came from other universes over, and they're here trying to help Earth out. Okay, so and there are lots of, you know, if you look at this theory of inflation, you know, right now no one knows, but they think there's, you know, 100 billion galaxies out there. That's just the current estimate. Well, there's at least that many universes. So go figure. It's hard to comprehend what these numbers mean.
When she was talking about how there's too much knowledge and it's dangerous, it made me flash on this Indiana Jones movie where they were trying to get knowledge from the aliens, and this woman who was, I guess, one of the Nazis or something. She said, "I want to know everything. I want to know everything." You know, and they said, "Okay," and then she melted.
Right. Yeah.
well, actually, they are comprehensible. Like, but you have to be a fairly old soul, and you have to have meditated a lot, and that sort of thing, because these levels of reality are within reach. I mean, Ron was a very good example of that.
Sure.
It's all out there, and there's great meditation teachers who live in that reality.
Yeah.
And I've, you know, experienced some of these minds. It's my favorite expression. It just blows your socks right off, you know.
Sure.
Well, something that we've been kind of working on together, and it didn't come together for tonight, but you know, maybe it will in the near future as we go back into our fall program. I think there's a real connection between the way we experience, this is a simple example of something like this, the way we experience Mercury retrograde on Earth. I think there's something to that that is like the double slit experiment. And I'm hoping that we can really articulate that well. I think it's something like what this class was about, that it's not just a question of what's actually happening, it's a question of consciousness. And just having that machine there recording what was happening with the electrons, whether they're behaving like particles or waves, seem to depend on this, you know, machine recording it. You know, and so it might have had some consciousness, as you know, we say every stone has some consciousness. So how much influence or effect or, you know, bearing did that consciousness of this recording mechanism have on the effects seen in the experiment, that sometimes these things behave like particles and sometimes they behave like waves. To our minds, they're mutually exclusive. To our minds, it's got to be one or the other. But the problem is in our perception. That's just a belief that we have that we're trying to impose on.
It's really a wavicle, see?
Right.
That's what the problem is.
But I think there's something to the question of who or what is aware of it. And I think it's like that with Mercury retrograde. Even if it's a misperception of the quote unquote truth, which we don't really know ultimately anyway, this could all be a projection, you know. And why does it affect us with that? There's the appearance of the retrograde motion. And I want to say it's got something to do with the consciousness. And maybe it's not our own consciousness only. Maybe it's actually Mercury, whatever the archetype is, whatever, you know, God or archetype or energy is associated with that. It seems like every culture has a similar archetypal association with that planet. And it's the closest one to the Earth. It's the smallest. You know, Pluto's been demoted from planet status. That's the only one that was smaller, but now it's no longer a planet. So Mercury's the smallest. And it moves very quickly. I just learned doing this research. Its rotation, its rate of rotation is slower than its revolution. So there's usually just one side effect. So I think things like that are all significant. I don't know how or why, but I'm working on a part 2 that will go into more detail. And I hope to work out some kind of a connection with the double slit experiment and this whole question of, you know, how, where, you know, when does consciousness come into the whole equation? I think it's really important. It might be the only thing that matters, you know.
Yeah. I like one of the things that the Dalai Lama, I've only contacted with him a few times. I actually met him, I shook his hand. But is that he has the most advanced mind I've ever seen. Actually, it's not quite true, but never mind. But basically, he said that he's only beginning to understand the nature of the mind. Like, and if anyone understands the mind, it would be him, right? And he says he's just starting to understand it. So that's how big it is. Like it's the unfoldment of consciousness is a huge deal. And everyone is working on it in one way or another.
And it's not just some receiver, or transmitter. It's much more deep than that.
Oh yeah, incredibly
It's-
deep. I mean, a lot of the experiences I have had are so beyond anything you could possibly imagine at all, and yet they're the reality of who you really are and what's actually happening. It's mind-boggling stuff. Ron was a good example of that.
Bruce, I have a compelling question to ask you. Did the Dalai Lama have a firm or a limp handshake?
That what?
Did the Dalai Lama have a firm or a limp handshake?
Did he, his handshake was a loose one or a really firm handshake?
Was it like,
It was reasonably
fist?
firm.
I would expect that.
It wasn't.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
Well-
people are just like, they just sort of hand
Like a
it to
dead
you.
fish, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
it's
no, definitely not a dead fish.
a peculiar thing.
So I have another observation, or I don't know if that's the right word, and that is that if we can all agree that we're part of a much greater scheme, if you will, and that we all have our minds are capable of all manner of loftier things, and it strikes me that our going around through this karma nonsense and reincarnation on Earth is kind of a hazing. It's like a fraternity hazing. It's like, what's the necessity of this? The people who really have it together, people using, as being the most convenient word, should be able to cleanse and bestow this knowledge on all of these poor souls that are going around the earth, not have to do this. This is torture for, untold millions of people.
Yeah. Well, it's a consciousness unfolding itself, is how I look at it. Like karma, mind, and difficult formations in the mind that are caused from the past, like rage and hate, for example, are all transcendable, and everyone is heading in that direction. It's really, when you look at the structures of how some things unfold, it's actually strikingly obvious. Because one of the things I do see in everyone is that everyone has a heart mind. They can't find it. They don't even know it's there, but they still have it, and they can't find it. And they're in real deep trouble. But eventually they'll get there. They'll eventually figure it out. And from the bad experiences, they'll figure out not to do that, So that's unfoldment of the mind for everyone. It's universal. That's how I perceive it.
So it means you just have to pay your dues. That's it.
Well, you have to work bloody hard.
I think more and more people are at least realizing what something else is going on here, Mr. Jones, and that it's not what we're taught in school. It's not what we're taught on TV. It's not what society would have us think. It's something else. I think it's more beautiful and meaningful, but it's definitely also a lot more mysterious.
Well, certainly a lot more hidden, that's for sure.
This reductive mechanistic explanation for things, and it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's just clearly not that. And I think more and more people are at least, being awakened or, to that level when they say, well, I don't know what it is, but it's not that.
Yeah. Everyone is a mystic, really.
Right.
Everyone is figuring it out, It's like, it's always,
When we started this class, we cited the statistic that polls right now are showing that in the United States, the largest religious group is spiritual but not affiliated with any organized religion. So, you know, it isn't just us that's saying, you know, the dogma or the creed of this or that or the other thing doesn't do it for me. There's the largest group out of the population is saying it, and it's the fastest growing segment on top of that.
Right.
The other existing faiths are losing members.
Oh, yeah.
They identify as, quote, spiritual.
But not affiliated,
It
And they
really is kind of
spiritual, but not religious.
but not religious, spiritual, not religious in the sense of being tied to a particular religious sect, whatever it is.
I just wouldn't, I wouldn't expect that there would be that many people who would personally relate to calling themselves spiritual. You know, that's kind of a pleasant surprise to me to learn that. You know, I just wouldn't.
Well, I mean, I pointed us to this book by J.D. Vance, Hillbilly Elegy. You know, he cites that. He grew up in, again, the coal fields of West Virginia, and then they moved to the manufacturing part of Ohio. And his family was entirely spiritual, but they never went to church. Or if they did, they might go on Christmas, you know, or Easter to some church, but there wasn't any, you know, anything more to religion in his life than that. And he's running for senator right now from Ohio. So
I just wonder, I wonder what their kind of generic understanding of being spiritual entails. You know, I mean, I must say that
I think the largest group is just unaffiliated, isn't it? I don't know if it's spiritual, but unaffiliated.
well, it was a, you know, what religious, how would you describe yourself from a religious faith vantage point was what the poll was. So they're willing to say, well, I'm spiritual. Something created all of this around me, but I don't buy into, or I don't participate in any of the existing faith practices, any of the dogma. That I don't buy into their dogma. That's what the nature of the question was. We go back and look at it. I'm just sensitive about the time. Let's call it a day. We're gonna noodle on next week as the start of year 3. So it's been a journey, and we'll see what in the world we can come up with for year 3. And watch your emails. So have a good. Bye-bye.
thank you and Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Okay.
You as well.